Imagine a battlefield where the outcome of a war could hinge not on the weapons you know, but on the ones you've never even heard of. World War II is often remembered for its iconic machines: the Sherman tank, the Spitfire, the dreaded Tiger, and the thunderous roar of the B-17 Flying Fortress. But beneath the surface of these legends, hidden in the shadows of history, were weapons so innovative, so dangerous, and so ahead of their time that they could have changed the course of the conflict, if only they had been unleashed to their full potential. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the top 5 most dangerous weapons of wwII that you've probably never heard of. These are not the household names of war, but the secret nightmares that haunted generals, the experimental marvels that pushed the boundaries of science, and the deadly inventions that in some cases were simply too terrifying to use. Let's set the stage. By 1942, the world was locked in a struggle unlike any before. Nations poured their brightest minds and deepest resources into the war effort, desperate for any edge that could tip the balance. The result was a technological arms race that produced some of the most extraordinary and sometimes bizarre devices ever conceived. Some of these weapons were so secret that even today, their full stories are only just coming to light. Others were dismissed as impractical, too dangerous, or simply ahead of their time. But all of them share one thing in common: they were designed to kill, to terrify, and to change the very nature of warfare. Before we dive into our list, let's be clear. This isn't about the biggest bombs or the most famous guns. This is about the hidden threats, the overlooked innovations, and the weapons that, for a moment, made the world's most powerful militaries stop and wonder, what if? As we count down, you'll discover not just the technology but the human stories behind these inventions, the scientists who risked everything, the soldiers who faced the unknown, and the moments when history teetered on the edge of disaster. Our journey begins not with a bang but with a whisper, a weapon so silent, so insidious, that its victims often never knew what hit them. In the dense forests of Eastern Europe, as the Red Army clashed with the Wehrmacht in a brutal struggle for survival, a new kind of terror emerged from the shadows. The Soviet Union, desperate to slow the German advance, turned to a weapon that was as unconventional as it was deadly: the PFM-1 butterfly mine. While the name might sound almost innocent, the reality was anything but. The PFM-1 was a small, plastic anti-personnel mine, shaped like a butterfly or a leaf, and designed to be scattered by the thousands from aircraft or artillery shells. Unlike traditional mines, which were buried in the ground, the butterfly mine was meant to lie on the surface, hidden among leaves, grass, or snow. Its light weight and unusual shape meant it could be carried by the wind, drifting into unexpected places: footpaths, trenches, even inside buildings. The mine was activated by the slightest pressure, and its charge was just powerful enough to maim, not kill. The logic was chilling. A wounded soldier requires more resources to care for than a dead one, tying up medics, stretcher bearers, and morale. But what made the butterfly mine truly dangerous was its psychological impact. Soldiers learned to fear the very ground they walked on. Every step could be their last. The mines were nearly invisible, and their plastic construction made them almost impossible to detect with metal detectors. In the chaos of battle, a single mine could halt an entire unit, sowing confusion and terror. The Germans, caught off guard by this new threat, were forced to adapt, slowing their advance, changing their tactics, and devoting precious time and manpower to mine-clearing operations. Yet the butterfly mine was just the beginning. As the war dragged on, both sides raced to develop ever more ingenious ways to kill and cripple the enemy. Some of these weapons were so secret that their existence was denied for decades. Others were so dangerous that they were used only in the most desperate circumstances. And some, like our next entry, were so bizarre that they sound like something out of a science fiction novel. Picture this. It's 1943, and the Allies are searching for a way to strike back at the heart of Nazi Germany. The problem: the Luftwaffe's air defenses are formidable, and conventional bombing raids are costly and dangerous. Enter the Habakkuk Project, a plan so audacious, so utterly outside the box that it defies belief. The idea was simple: build an aircraft carrier out of ice. Yes, you heard that right, ice. The brainchild of British inventor Geoffrey Pike, Project Habakkuk aimed to create a floating fortress, hundreds of meters long, made from a mixture of ice and wood pulp called pickrete. This material was not only incredibly strong, able to withstand torpedoes and bombs, but also cheap and easy to produce. The plan was to station these massive ice ships in the North Atlantic, where they would serve as unsinkable platforms for aircraft, protecting convoys from German U-boats and providing a base for long-range bombing missions. The concept was so radical that it attracted the attention of Winston Churchill himself, who ordered a prototype built in a secret Canadian lake. The prototype worked sort of. It was slow to melt, resistant to bullets, and could support heavy loads. But the challenges were immense. How to keep the ice from melting, how to power the ship, how to build something so massive in the middle of a war. In the end, Project Habakkuk was abandoned, but not before it captured the imagination of military planners and scientists on both sides of the Atlantic. As we move forward, the weapons become even stranger, even more dangerous, and even more shrouded in secrecy. From silent killers to floating fortresses, the hidden arsenal of World War II was as varied as it was deadly. But for every weapon that made it to the battlefield, there were dozens more that never left the drawing board, ideas that were too dangerous, too unpredictable, or simply too far ahead of their time. If the idea of an ice aircraft carrier seems outlandish, our next weapon is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous ideas are the ones that almost worked. As the war raged on, the Axis and Allied powers both sought ways to break the stalemate, to deliver a blow so devastating that it would force the enemy to their knees. In the laboratories and secret workshops of Nazi Germany, a new kind of terror was taking shape, one that would bring the world to the brink of a new era of warfare. Enter the Schwerer Gustav, a weapon so massive, so powerful, that it defied the imagination of even the most seasoned generals. While the name might not ring a bell, the Schwerer Gustav was the largest artillery piece ever used in combat, a railway gun so enormous that it required a crew of over 2,000 men just to operate. Its barrel was 80 centimeters in diameter, capable of firing shells weighing over 7 tons at targets more than 30 miles away. The gun itself weighed nearly 1,350 tons and had to be transported in pieces, assembled on specially built tracks, and protected by anti-aircraft batteries. But what made the Schwerer Gustav truly dangerous was not just its size or firepower. It was the psychological impact it had on both friend and foe. When the gun was first deployed during the Siege of Sevastopol in 1942, its shells could penetrate meters of concrete and steel, obliterating bunkers and fortifications that had been considered impregnable. The thunderous roar of its firing could be heard for miles, shaking the ground and shattering morale. For the defenders, the knowledge that such a weapon existed was enough to sow fear and uncertainty. For the attackers, it was a symbol of technological might, a promise that no fortress was safe. Yet, for all its power, the Schwerer Gustav was also a symbol of the limits of technology. Its sheer size made it vulnerable to air attack, difficult to move, and almost impossible to conceal. It could only be used in specific circumstances, and its logistical demands were staggering. In the end, the gun was used only a handful of times before being abandoned and destroyed to prevent its capture. But its legacy lived on, a testament to the lengths nations would go to in pursuit of victory, and a warning of the dangers of putting too much faith in a single, superweapon. As we move down our list, the weapons become smaller, but no less deadly. In the Pacific theater, where dense jungles and island fortresses made conventional warfare almost impossible, both sides turned to new forms of stealth and sabotage. Here, the line between science and science fiction began to blur, as inventors and engineers raced to create devices that could turn the tide of battle with a single, well-placed blow. One of the most remarkable and least known of these inventions was the bat bomb. Developed by the United States, the bat bomb was exactly what it sounds like: a bomb filled with live bats, each carrying a tiny incendiary device. The idea was as ingenious as it was bizarre. Released over Japanese cities at dawn, the bats would seek shelter in the wooden eaves and attics of buildings, where their timed charges would ignite, starting thousands of fires simultaneously. In a country where most urban structures were made of wood and paper, the potential for destruction was enormous. The Bat Bomb Project, codenamed Project X-Ray, was the brainchild of a Pennsylvania dentist named Little S. Adams, who pitched the idea to the White House after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The military, desperate for any advantage, took the proposal seriously, and soon teams of scientists and engineers were capturing thousands of Mexican free-tailed bats, strapping tiny napalm charges to their bodies, and testing the devices in secret. The results were both impressive and alarming. During one test, the bats escaped and set fire to the Army Air Base in Carlsbad, New Mexico, destroying a hangar and several barracks. Despite its promise, the bat bomb was ultimately shelved in favor of the atomic bomb, which offered even greater destructive power. But the project remains a fascinating example of the creativity and desperation that defined the war. It also serves as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are the ones that never see the battlefield, but change the way we think about war forever. As we approach the end of our list, the weapons become more personal, more intimate, and in some ways even more terrifying. In the chaos of battle, when the lines between friend and foe blur and survival depends on split-second decisions, the most dangerous weapon is often the one you never see coming. In the closing years of the war, as Germany faced defeat on all fronts, a new kind of terror began to stalk the night: the Sturmgewehr 44, or St. G44. At first glance, the St. G44 might seem unremarkable, a simple, utilitarian rifle issued to German infantry in the final years of the conflict. But beneath its unassuming exterior lay a revolution in military technology. The St. G44 was the world's first true assault rifle, combining the firepower of a machine gun with the portability of a carbine. It could fire in both semi-automatic and fully automatic modes, allowing soldiers to lay down a withering hail of bullets or pick off targets at range. Its intermediate cartridge offered a balance of power and control, making it deadly at both short and medium distances. The impact of the St. G44 was immediate and profound. German soldiers armed with the weapon found themselves able to outgun their opponents in close-quarters combat, while still maintaining accuracy at longer ranges. The rifle's design was so advanced that it would go on to inspire the legendary AK-47, shaping the future of infantry warfare for decades to come. Yet, despite its potential, the St. G44 arrived too late to change the outcome of the war. Production delays, supply shortages, and the chaos of Germany's collapse meant that only a fraction of troops were ever equipped with the weapon. Still, the legacy of the St. G44 endures, a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are not the ones that win wars, but the ones that change them forever. As we prepare to reveal our final entry, it's worth reflecting on the common thread that unites all these inventions: the relentless drive to innovate, to adapt, and to survive, no matter the cost. As we reach the final entry in our countdown, it's time to confront a weapon that in many ways encapsulates the very essence of World War II's hidden dangers: the human mind itself, weaponized through science, secrecy, and desperation. The last weapon on our list is not a gun, a bomb, or a tank, but a device that blurred the line between technology and terror: the German Windkanone, or wind cannon. The Windkanone was conceived in the fevered imagination of Nazi scientists searching for a miracle weapon to turn the tide of war. By 1944, Germany was on the defensive, battered by Allied bombing raids and losing ground on every front. The Luftwaffe, once the terror of Europe, was now outnumbered and outgunned. In this climate of desperation, the Nazi high command was willing to try anything, no matter how outlandish. Enter the Windkanone, a weapon that promised to shoot down enemy aircraft using nothing but compressed air. The concept was deceptively simple. The Windkanone consisted of a massive barrel, over 30 feet long, mounted on a concrete base and connected to a series of high-pressure tanks. When fired, the cannon would release a sudden burst of compressed air, creating a shockwave powerful enough to damage or even destroy low-flying aircraft. The idea was to position these cannons around key targets, factories, bridges, and airfields, where they could create invisible barriers of force, knocking enemy bombers out of the sky without a single shot being fired. On paper, the Windkanone seemed like a miracle solution, It required no ammunition, could be fired repeatedly, and left no telltale tracers for enemy pilots to dodge. But in practice, the weapon was plagued by problems. The shockwave, while impressive, quickly dissipated over distance, making it effective only at extremely close range. The cannon was also massive, immobile, and required enormous amounts of energy to operate. During tests, the Windkanone was able to shatter wooden boards and even damage brick walls, but it failed to bring down a single aircraft. Despite these shortcomings, several prototypes were built and deployed around Berlin in the final months of the war, a testament to the desperation and ingenuity of a nation on the brink. The Windkanone stands as a symbol of the lengths to which humanity will go in the pursuit of victory, and the dangers of letting fear and desperation drive innovation. It also serves as a reminder that not all dangerous weapons are successful ones. Sometimes, the mere idea of a new technology can shape the course of a conflict, forcing enemies to adapt, to change tactics, and to live in fear of the unknown. But the story of wwII's most dangerous weapons doesn't end with the machines themselves. Behind every invention, every secret project, and every battlefield deployment, there were people, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians, whose lives were forever changed by the relentless march of progress. Their stories are often lost in the shadows, overshadowed by the legends of tanks and planes, but they are no less important. Take, for example, the scientists who worked on the Bat Bomb project. Many of them were ordinary men and women, drawn from universities and research labs across the United States. They worked long hours in secrecy, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to end the war as quickly as possible. Some were horrified by the potential consequences of their work, while others saw it as a necessary evil. When the project was finally canceled, many of these scientists went on to work on the Manhattan Project, bringing with them the lessons and the moral dilemmas of their earlier efforts. Or consider the soldiers who faced the butterfly mines on the Eastern Front. For them, every step was a gamble, every patch of ground a potential death trap. Some developed elaborate rituals for crossing minefields, relying on luck, superstition, and the careful observation of their comrades. Others became experts in mine detection and removal, risking their lives to clear paths for their units. The psychological toll was immense, leaving scars that would last long after the war was over. Even the engineers who built the Schwerer Gustav faced challenges that went far beyond the technical. They worked under constant pressure, knowing that failure could mean not just the loss of a weapon, but the loss of the war itself. Many of them were conscripted laborers, forced to work in brutal conditions, with little hope of recognition or reward. Their stories are a stark reminder that the true cost of innovation is often paid in sweat, blood, and sacrifice. As we look back on these hidden weapons, it's tempting to see them as curiosities, footnotes in the grand narrative of World War II. But to do so is to miss the larger lesson. The most dangerous weapons are not always the ones that kill the most people or win the most battles. Sometimes, they are the ones that change the way we think about war, that force us to confront the limits of our own ingenuity, and that remind us of the thin line between genius and madness. In the end, the story of wwII's most dangerous weapons is a story of contrasts between hope and fear, innovation and destruction, victory and defeat. It is a story that continues to resonate today, as new technologies emerge and old fears resurface. The lessons of the past are as relevant now as they were then, that the pursuit of power, unchecked by wisdom or compassion, can lead to consequences beyond our control. As we close our exploration of these 5 hidden dangers, let's remember the people behind the machines, the choices that shaped their creation, and the world they left behind. For in the shadows of history, the most dangerous weapons are often the ones we never see coming. The legacy of these hidden weapons stretches far beyond the battlefields where they were conceived. In the decades since World War II, the lessons learned from these inventions have shaped the way nations approach conflict, technology, and even peace. The butterfly mine, for example, became a template for future generations of anti-personnel mines. Its insidious design echoed in conflicts from Vietnam to Afghanistan. The world would eventually come to recognize the humanitarian cost of such weapons, leading to international treaties and campaigns to ban their use. Yet, the specter of the butterfly mine still haunts war zones, a reminder that the most dangerous ideas can outlive the wars that spawned them. Project Habakkuk, though never realized on a grand scale, inspired a new way of thinking about materials and engineering. The concept of picrete, a blend of ice and wood pulp, was studied by scientists for years after the war, influencing research into composite materials and unconventional construction. The audacity of building a ship from ice challenged engineers to rethink the limits of what was possible, and the story of Habakkuk remains a favorite among those who believe that no idea is too strange to consider. The Schwerer Gustav, for all its size and power, ultimately proved that bigger is not always better. Its logistical nightmares and limited utility highlighted the importance of mobility, flexibility, and adaptability in modern warfare. The age of the supergun faded, replaced by the era of precision-guided munitions and rapid deployment forces. Yet, the psychological impact of such a weapon lingers in military doctrine, a cautionary tale about the dangers of putting too much faith in a single, overwhelming force. The bat bomb, with its blend of biology and technology, foreshadowed the rise of unconventional warfare and the use of living creatures as weapons. Today, the idea of weaponizing animals or harnessing nature for military purposes is the subject of ethical debate and scientific inquiry. The bat bomb's legacy is a complex one, raising questions about the boundaries of innovation and the responsibilities of those who wield it. The St. G44, perhaps more than any other weapon on this list, changed the face of combat forever. Its influence can be seen in the rifles carried by soldiers around the world, its design principles echoed in every modern assault weapon. The St. G44 was a glimpse into the future, a future where firepower, accuracy, and versatility would define the infantryman's role on the battlefield. Its arrival marked the end of one era and the beginning of another, a turning point in the history of warfare. And then there is the Windkanone, a symbol of both the promise and the peril of unchecked innovation. The dream of a weapon that could strike without warning, without trace, and without mercy is as old as war itself. The Windkanone's failure was a reminder that not every idea, no matter how brilliant, can overcome the realities of physics and the chaos of battle. But its story endures, a testament to the creativity and the desperation that war can inspire. What unites all these weapons is not just their danger but their obscurity. They are the forgotten inventions, the footnotes in history books, the secrets buried in archives and whispered about by those who remember. Yet their impact is undeniable. Each one, in its own way, shaped the course of the war, influenced the decisions of generals and politicians, and left a mark on the world that can still be felt today. As we reflect on these hidden dangers, it's important to remember that the true power of a weapon lies not in its design, but in its use. The most dangerous weapons are those that change the way we think, the way we fight, and the way we live. They are the inventions that force us to confront our own ingenuity, our own fears, and our own capacity for destruction. The story of World War II's most dangerous weapons is, ultimately, a story about people. It is about the scientists who dreamed of changing the world, the soldiers who risked everything on the battlefield, and the civilians who lived in the shadow of war. It is about the choices we make, the risks we take, and the consequences we must live with. In the end, the weapons themselves are only part of the story. The real danger lies in the ideas that drive us to create them, the ambitions that push us to the brink, and the fears that keep us looking over our shoulders. As we look to the future, let us remember the lessons of the past, not just the machines we built, but the reasons we built them, and the world we hope to create. The top 5 most dangerous weapons of World War II that you've never heard of are more than just curiosities. They are windows into a time of unprecedented change, a time when the fate of the world hung in the balance, and when the line between genius and madness was thinner than ever before. They remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and battles, but a living, breathing story, one that continues to shape our lives in ways we may never fully understand. So the next time you hear about the tanks, the planes, and the bombs that won the war, remember the hidden dangers that lurked in the shadows. Remember the butterfly mine, the Habakkuk project, the Schwerer Gustav, the bat bomb, the St. G44, and the Windkanone. Remember the people who built them, the people who faced them, and the world that was forever changed by their existence. Because in the end, the most dangerous weapons are not always the ones we see coming. Sometimes, They are the ones we never even knew existed. But what if history had taken a different turn? What if these hidden weapons had been deployed on a larger scale, or had arrived just a little earlier, or had fallen into different hands? The what-ifs of World War II are as endless as they are haunting, and nowhere are they more compelling than in the stories of these forgotten inventions. Imagine, for a moment, a world where the butterfly mine was not just a tool of desperation, but a standard weapon of every army. The battlefields of Europe and Asia would have become even more treacherous, every step a potential death sentence, every advance slowed to a crawl. The psychological warfare waged by these tiny, nearly invisible killers would have left entire generations scarred, their memories haunted by the ever-present threat beneath their feet. The post-war world, too, would have been different. Fields and forests littered with unexploded mines, communities living in fear, and the slow, painful process of clearing the remnants of war stretching on for decades. Or consider the Habakkuk Project, brought to life not as a prototype, but as a fleet of icy leviathans patrolling the North Atlantic. Allied convoys, once easy prey for German U-boats, would have found sanctuary behind walls of frozen armor. The balance of naval power might have shifted, the Battle of the Atlantic shortened, and the course of the war at sea forever altered. The very idea of building ships from ice would have inspired a new era of innovation, challenging engineers and architects to rethink the materials and methods of construction in every field. The Schwerer Gustav, too, offers a tantalizing glimpse into an alternate history. Had the gun been more mobile, more easily deployed, or better protected from air attack, it might have become the terror of the Eastern Front, smashing fortifications and breaking sieges with impunity. The psychological impact on both sides would have been immense, as soldiers and civilians alike lived in fear of the next thunderous barrage. The lessons learned from Gustav's limitations would have driven the development of even more powerful and efficient artillery, shaping the future of warfare in ways we can only imagine. The Bat Bomb, with its eerie blend of nature and technology, stands as a reminder of the unpredictable consequences of innovation. Had the project been completed and deployed, Japanese cities might have faced a new kind of firestorm, one that struck without warning and spread with terrifying speed. The ethical debates sparked by the use of living creatures as weapons would have come to the forefront much earlier, forcing the world to confront the moral boundaries of war in a way that still resonates today. And what of the St. G44? If the rifle had been produced in greater numbers, distributed more widely, and adopted earlier in the conflict, the face of infantry combat might have changed overnight. German soldiers, armed with the world's first true assault rifle, could have held their ground against overwhelming odds, turning the tide in battles from Normandy to the Eastern Front. The legacy of the St. G44 is already profound, but in this alternate history, its impact would have been even greater, a weapon that not only changed the future, but reshaped the present. The Windkanone, for all its flaws, is perhaps the most evocative symbol of the war's hidden dangers. In a world where the laws of physics bent just a little more, where the shockwave traveled a little farther, the skies over Berlin might have been filled with invisible death, Allied bombers falling from the sky without a trace. The mere rumor of such a weapon would have sown panic among pilots and planners, forcing new tactics, new technologies, and new fears. These alternate histories are, of course, just speculation, but they serve as a powerful reminder of the thin line between success and failure, between innovation and disaster. The weapons we've explored in this journey were not just products of their time. They were the result of choices, of risks taken and opportunities missed, of human ingenuity and human folly. As we close this chapter, let's return to the present. The world we live in today is shaped by the legacy of World War II, by the inventions that changed the course of history and the ones that never quite made it. The lessons of the past are more important than ever, as new technologies emerge and old fears resurface. The hidden dangers of yesterday are the challenges of tomorrow, and the choices we make now will shape the world for generations to come. So the next time you hear the familiar stories of World War II, the tanks, the planes, the battles that defined an era, remember the weapons you've never heard of. Remember the butterfly mine, the Habakkuk Project, the Schwerer Gustav, the Bat Bomb, the St. G44, and the Windkanone. Remember the people who dreamed them into existence, the soldiers who faced them on the battlefield, and the world that was forever changed by their presence. History is not just a record of what happened, but a warning of what could happen again. The most dangerous weapons are not always the ones we see, but the ones we overlook, the ideas, the inventions, and the ambitions that lurk in the shadows, waiting for their moment to emerge. By understanding the past, by shining a light on the hidden dangers of history, we can better prepare for the challenges of the future. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the forgotten arsenal of World War II. If you found these stories as fascinating and as chilling as we did, share this video, subscribe for more hidden history, and let us know in the comments which secret weapon surprised you the most. Until next time, remember, the greatest dangers are often the ones we never see coming.